Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, welcome back.
Yeah.
I hope the 1 week break was refreshing. Doesn't look like it, huh? People are closing their eyes. Anyway, I've got a few assignments. There are still others who have not sent in their assignments or at least emailed it to me. So if you haven't, please do it soon. Let's see. Today we'll be discussing the organization life cycle. Faizatul, Noraini, and Jamalia, you sent in on WhatsApp your slides. Good, but also I think we'll listen to the presentation here. Faizatul is here. Noraini, not many people are here yet. We'll just wait for them to come in. Noraini and Jamalia are not here yet, I suppose. All right, Jamalia is here.
Assalamualaikum, Doktor. Salam.
We'll just wait for people to come in. So far, we have 13 people. So we'll just wait for Noraini, right?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, Faizatul is here, good. Jamalia is here. You have 16 people. There's 6 more, I suppose, 7 more. Jamalia, you know where Noraini is? Norani?
I'm here, Rob.
You're here. Oh, yeah. Sorry, missed you. All right, good. So Faizatul is here also. So I think we can proceed with our class for today. The title will be Organization Life Cycle. Very interesting because it's something that happens to most organizations. And we can explore and look at some examples later on also, right? I think your group has Starbucks. So we'll look at it, how Starbucks have grown. And later on, I'll be also wrapping up with some explanation about organization life cycle. Okay, so if Nurani or Jamalia, Fajatul, if you're ready with the slides, you let me allow you to share.
Okay, Doctor.
Can? All right. Okay, good. You can see the slides.
Okay. So, we start.
You can wait on slideshow.
Okay. Hold on.
All right, you got it. Okay, the class is yours.
So can we start?
Yes, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and good evening to Dr. Kidin and my fellow friends. Today our group
Sorry.
will present on the topic 8 about the organization life cycle. So next. So
Okay.
this is our team members, Faizatul, Noraini, and I, Jamalia. Next, this is our content of presentation today. First, we go to the introduction. Next. Okay, the first definition of organization life cycle. If you look at the picture in the slide, basically organization life cycle, it is similar with human life cycle, which organization also go through some phases in life cycle, and each phase has well-defined characteristic. Next. So basically, we can say that organization life cycle is referring to the belief that organizations behave in predictable ways between its creation to its termination, and it also refers to the expected sequence of advancements experienced by organization. Next. The second one is the theory of organization life cycle. Okay, the first one is the theory by Kenneth Boulding in 1950. Basically, Kenneth Boulding is pioneered the study of organization life cycle, and he suggested that the concept with 4 stages. The first one is birth. In this stage, basically, organization primarily struggle to survive. The second stage is maturation. In this stage, organizations develop external reputation and internal management systems. The third stage is eventual decline, where internally organization will suffer from misaligned management practices that no longer meet the needs of the organization and stakeholders. And the last stage is death. This is where organization unable to turn a profit and meet the basic operating cost. Next, however, in 1972, Larry Greiner, who is American organization expert, describes organization growth model. So what is Greiner growth model? According to organizations are always underway and comparisons can be made with living organisms that go through several growth phases. He also initially proposed 5 phases, to which he later added to 6 phases of growth model. The growth towards next stage is accompanied by resistance, which is also referred as growing pains. And this model also a popular strategic management tool to make the right strategic decisions. Next. Okay, in the theory of Greiner growth model, the only variable in the model is the time factor. The model is a descriptive framework which the age of the organization is marked out against the size of organization. Greiner also assumes that organization grows and expands throughout the years. And the model also make it easier to understand why management styles, organization structure, coordination mechanism work and why they don't work at certain phases in the development phase of an organization. And the model also orients towards strategy policy because of every phase requires different competency. Next. So, according to the Greiner growth model, every structure is valid for a specific time period and organization change triggers radical structure changes. Changing organization structures solves the problems in that time and prepares infrastructure for the problems may occur in the future. So the next, we will present about the phases of the Greiner growth model.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, Assalamualaikum, a very good evening. Greiner growth model predicts the 6 phases and crises that organization, especially business, go through as they grow. The first phase, is creativity. Then the second one is direction, leading to delegation, and then coordination, collaboration, and lastly alliances. Crises occur as the business transition between these phases, and advancement to the next phase require successfully resolving the crisis in the previous stage. Okay, we proceed to the next slide. Okay. Okay, the criteria of the organization in the first phase are the emphasis on the creating the product and market, and also communication is frequent and informal. Okay, I will give the example of the startup company operated in Malaysia, which is Kasam. Okay, Kasam is an online bidding portal for used car. It helps car owner in the process selling a car, from inspection to valuation and payment. For your information, they are the first automotive website in Malaysia that provide the smartest, easiest and fastest car selling service with full transparency. The best part is Kasam originating from Malaysia, and now they are also operates in Indonesia, Thailand, and also Singapore. The second example is Dah Makan. Okay, Dah Makan provides a service of food delivery equipped with its own chef and kitchen. Dah Makan make foods delivery in Kuala Lumpur and also Bangkok. Okay, in this first phase, this is where the creativity driven by the founder, and this is where the organization learning occurs. The crisis that lead to the second phase is leadership crisis, where the founders struggle to both run and manage the business. Then conflict emerge on the new products and market. The founders is in need for key direction and lack of management skills. So the suggested solution for this crisis is to hire a strong business manager to pull the business together. Okay, next, Atul. Okay, the crisis of the leadership in stage 1 result in recruitment of top level manager who take the responsibility for the organization strategies. The criteria of the organization in this phase are they have functional organization structure and also accounting and capital management. These company provide incentive, budget, and work standards. Involve more formal communication, has hierarchy level and also directive top-down management. Okay, for example, the functional hierarchy features of the Amber Heart and Post Malaysia. Organizational structure is referred to grouping based on business function. For example, these companies has a HR department, a finance department, and also a marketing department. Government agencies in Malaysia are the best example of directive top-down management. Okay, let's look at the crisis part. Okay, at some point, the scale of the workload get too big for the leadership teams to monitor. That creates the crisis point of autonomy. And in order to move to the next phase, work and authority needs to be delegated to others. So the solution is delegation of works. Next satu. Okay, in the third stage, layers of hierarchy are added. Top management become less involved in day-to-day details and focus more on organization long-term strategies. Okay, the example, hotel chains are particularly keen in using this decentralized structure so that the local hotel managers are empowered to make on-the-spot decision to handle customer problems or complaints. For example, here is CHM Hotel. CHM Hotel is Malaysian company. The first CHM Hotel was in Penang in 1997. Next, followed by Citytel Mid Valley, and now Citytel Hotel Management CHM operates across Malaysia and Philippines. Okay, in this phase, the crisis of control occur as power struggle over resources emerge between top level and lower level managers. Management attempt to regain control and fail due to scope of operation and markets. To proceed to the stage 4, the organization needs to coordinate and standardize its procedure to allow it to scale. Next satu. In fourth phase, new policies and procedures are introduced to bring structure throughout the organization. Top management takes the on role of coordinating different divisions, and the organization has centralized support function. But however, this lead to crisis of red tape, sorry, increasing because of increasing reliance on rules and standard procedures, organization become overly bureaucratic, and then no doubt in our mind that unnecessary red tape is the major cause of corruption. The more red tape and bureaucracies there is, the more corrupt givers must pay to untie the red tape. So corrupt receiver like to introduce more red tapes to get more bribes. Okay. In Malaysia, the government has agreed to create Malaysia Mudah with the hashtag MyMudah to assist companies and businesses that have been burdened by red tape and bureaucracies. The initiative would also help lower business costs and create jobs while stimulating the economy. So our Prime Minister also took the matter seriously and had directed the EAC, which is Economic Act Councils, and also Malaysian Productivity Councils, MPC, to intervene and act as a solution provider to the matter. Okay, next. In this phase, in the fifth phase, grow with collaboration, a range of scalable and agile systems that support more flexibility replace bureaucracy instead of a rigid system for decision making. Intelligence leaders are trusted to use good judgment. The example of organization with these criteria is Starbucks, because Starbucks has a metric organization structure, which is a hybrid mixture of different features from the basic types of organizational structure. The main features of Starbucks company corporate structure is are functional hierarchy, geographic divisions, product-based division, and also they have teams. While they are initially successful, this leads to crisis point of internal growth, where the organization must look outside for new opportunities, and in order to proceed to the next phase, the organization needs to create a culture based on collaboration and also alliances. Next. Okay. In this final stage, growth with alliances, the organization can only solve its challenges by partnering with other organizations through outsourcing, mergers, and acquisitions. Okay. Uh, in Malaysia, in 2007, the government merged Guthrie with Sundarbi and Golden Hope Plantation to form a new entity that named Synergy Drive, and it's later renamed to Sundarbi. So another example of this is oil and gas sector merger between Kencana Petroleum Berhad and Sapura Petroleum Berhad Group, which is happened in 2012, becoming Sapura Kencana Petroleum Berhad, and now is known as Sapura Energy Berhad since 2017. Okay, and acquisition, in the other hand, refer to the purchase of one entity by one other entity, involve the share purchase exercise for ownership of the company without the creation of the new entity. The example of acquisition in Malaysia is the acquisition of MBF Kite, Malaysia Senyap Berhad, and also Kurnia Insurance by M-Bank Group. Okay. So all the expansion creates in the crisis point of identity, where the organization must refocus on its vision, mission, and strategy. So the organization needs to reinvent its vision and mission and partner with the organization that best further the mission and vision. Okay, this is my explanation. Okay, now Can we take a break and watch Netflix business model, Prof? We can see how they expand the business and survive. Okay, Atul, can we proceed? Can you all hear the sound of the video?
Cannot, Naini cannot.
No, no sound.
Atul, we cannot hear.
Okay.
Hold on.
So, mana rasa dah kuat dah ni. So, start again.
Yeah, somehow sounds don't appear.
Sound didn't appear. Okay.
Sound now, right? Somehow on Zoom.
So, still no sound?
No.
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 So, do we have to proceed or?
Maybe we can share later.
We've already shared the video in the group, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we see
yeah,
at the
yeah.
group.
Actually,
The WhatsApp group.
Atul already shared the link in the group for the Netflix business model.
Yeah, sorry, but this morning we have tried this through Zoom, but it's coming okay. But I don't know why the sound, you cannot hear the sound
Maybe on
now.
Zoom.
So,
It's a Zoom problem, I think.
okay. So, you just skip the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So I pass the presentation to Atul to explain more about organization stage and organization state of development. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ain. So, I will explain more on organization decline and death. Okay, as you can see at the diagram, Jamalia and Ain have already explained until the Grainer's model of organizational growth. Okay, and I will proceed to organizational decline and death, and also Wetzel's and Johnson's model for organizational decline. Okay, for organizational decline, an organization enters the decline phase when it experiences continuous reduction in resources and revenue over a substantial period of time. Okay, as you can see here, the life cycle stage that an organization enters when it fails to anticipate, recognize, avoid, neutralize, or adapt to external or internal pressures that threaten its long-term survival. Okay, the decline can be recognized with certainty only when it's too late to recover from it. Early signs are often mistaken to be temporary, and the decline can occur after any growth stage, not necessarily after consolidation stage. Also, growth does not always lead to decline. There is also possibility of long period of stagnation. Okay, effectiveness and profitability. Assessing an organization effectiveness involves comparing its profitability relative to others. And profitability measures how well a company is making use of its resources by investing them in ways to create goods and services that generate profit when sold. Organizational inertia can be one of the factors of organizational decline, where the forces inside an organization that make it resistant to change. Okay, the first one is risk aversion, where managers become unwilling to bear the uncertainty of change as organizations grow. The second one is the desire to maximize rewards, where managers may increase the size of the company to maximize their own rewards, even when this growth reduces organizational effectiveness. And the last one is overly bureaucratic culture, where in large organizations, property rights can become so strong that managers spend all their time protecting their specific property rights instead of working to advance the organization. And the second factors is uncertain and changing environment. There are several causes in uncertain and changing environment, such as reduced workforce, reduced market share, reduced profit or share price, fierce competition, especially during the entrepreneurial stage. The bigger players might try all tools in their arsenal to counter the threat of a newcomer. And other than that is lack of customers, economic downfall, and organizational atrophy. Okay, this is the Wetzel's and Johnson's model for organizational decline. There are, as you can see here, there are 5 stages. Okay, the first one is the blinded stage, where organizations are unable to recognize the internal or external problems that threaten their long-term survival. Okay, usually in this stage, causes for decline are present but are not evident. So the leadership tends to insensitive and simply fails to make a connection between the observed changes and possible decline. Okay, the second stage is inaction, where despite clear things of deteriorating performance, top management takes little actions to correct problems. Okay, the signs of deteriorating performance are clearly evident in this stage, but the leadership still fails to take any action. Leaders often view them as a temporary changes, and instead of interpreting them as a threat, they choose to take wait-and-see approach, perhaps because this approach has worked in the past. The past successful approach fails when the current situation are very different. However, the leaders always have tendency to follow the planned course and suppress any dissident opinions. Finally, the aging leadership might simply lack the knowledge and insight to comprehend the influence of changing conditions. Okay, the third stage is faulty action, where managers may have made the wrong decision because of conflict in the top management team, or they may have changed too late, fearing more harm than good from reorganization. Okay, the fourth stage is crisis. The organization reaches a crisis stage when all prior actions have failed and it becomes obvious that without any major change, its survival is questionable. Okay, the last one is dissolution stage, where decline is irreversible and it marked by depletion of its finance, diminished market for its products, and exodus of its talented employees. The new leadership and strategy had failed to revive the business, and now their responsibility lies in proper dissolution of the organization and its resources. Okay, as you can see at the Wetzel and Johnson's model, the blue line is the actual performance, where the stage take part. And for example, the stage 1 blinded, okay, the graph is beginning to decline. Okay, but with good information, they might up to the acceptable organization performance graph. And in the second stage, in action, the actual performance decline, more decline, and but with prompt action, it can change the acceptable organization. But the last stage, dissolution, so there's no other effort that organization can do because it's too late to save the organization. Okay, here the Starbucks video for example of the organizational decline. But I think it also have no sound. So should we try? Sorry?
Just play it.
Just play, okay. No?
No sound, tak apalah.
No sound. Okay. I'm sorry for the okay, but still no sound. But you can see the video later. But from the video, we can see that Starbucks operation declines in Australia because the organization grows too fast and too much within short period of time. So they cannot do the market survey properly and have rival from other coffee operators like domestic coffee in Australia and I forgot the other coffee operators there. Okay, so we come to the summary part. As a summary, growing organization, okay, move through stages of life cycle, and each stage is associated with specific characteristics of structure, control systems, goals, and innovation. And the life cycle is phenomenon is a powerful concept used for understanding problems facing organizations and how managers can respond in a positive way to move an organization to the next stage. And in conclusion, historians and academics have observed that organizations like living organisms have life cycles. They are born, established, or formed, they grow and develop, they reach maturity, they begin to decline in age, and finally, in many cases, they die. Study of the organizational life cycle has resulted in various predictive models. These models, which have been a subject of considerable academic discussion, are linked to the study of organizational growth and development. Organizations at any stage of the life cycle are impacted by external environmental circumstances as well as internal factors. We are all aware of the rise and fall of organizations and entire industries. Products too have life cycles, a fact that has been long recognized by marketing and sales experts. Okay, besides the two videos that we want to show you, other examples of organizational life cycles are like Nokia, AirAsia, and others lah. Okay, I think that's all from me and from our group. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good job. Let's see if there's any questions or comments, opinions regarding the presentation today. Anyone has any questions or thoughts? Anyone?
No.
None?
No, Prof. They present it clearly, very clear.
That's clear, yes.
Yes.
Any comments, any experiences that you may want to share? None? All right, then I think you can close the screen and let me share what I have.
Yeah. Just sikit je, okay.
Okay, go straight to the decline stage. Okay, so let me just wrap up today's class. I think when we talk about organization life cycle, we are considering that organizations go through life just like how people do, or any organism for that matter. There's always the birth, which is usually sometimes people call it inception, or sometimes they call it the establishment. And this is where the organization comes to life, where it is set up by the founder, right? And as it grows to life, I think there is that successive challenges that they face when growing, especially when they want to continue to survive within their environment. There are always challenges that they face after one another, right? And I think researchers and scholars have tried to explain, they come up with predictive models, which, for example, Greiner turns into theory. And of course, earlier, I think Kaufman talked about how organizations are viewed in terms of how they grow and they are formed and then grow, and then possibly later on how they decline in terms of their performance. I think we've seen a lot of organizations go through that, right? Where they are established and then they grow tremendously. And then you will see a certain phase where they reach maturity, and this is where they reach a plateau in terms of performance. I think they have achieved a stability within their own market niche or within their own operations, right? And if that is not, I suppose, built on, or when the organization is already being comfortable and becomes complacent, then there will, of course, be a period where it begins to suffer in terms of its profits, in the case of profit-oriented organization, or it begins to suffer in terms of its, I suppose, operations, right? And this is where it begins to decline. I think if you look even at public organizations where they begin to lose their usefulness, right? Especially when the country grows, I suppose, then there'll be no need for, in the US, for example, the extension services, right, where they provide assistance through technological assistance to farmers. And as farmers become much more capable at doing and being much more independent, then there begins to be a less need for the extension services. And as such, they begin to lose their relevance, right? I think in the case of Malaysia also, we can see that happening in Felda, we can see that happening in even, I suppose, some of the government departments, where, for example, well, there may be some political interests also. Like, for example, Kemas has begun to decline. We don't see it anymore. Last time, in the beginning, where a lot of rural people needed government assistance, Kemas was set up. And as time goes on, then Kemas began to lose its relevance, right? There was not so much need, and of course, there became to be a political tool. And when it became a political tool, then it became to have its own problems. And you see now, it is no more in existence, right? So this is the life cycle that we talk about. And it is not much different from a group life cycle. And this is where Tuckman came up with its model way back in 1967, if I'm not mistaken, where he looked at group. Of course, the organization is, of course, also a group. And it begins where it is formed, and then after the formation, they go through a period of storming. This is where people begin to look for ways to manage the group better, right? Where, for example, there is a leadership crisis, and where, for example, they try to find their ways at going about how they want to do things within the organization and how they want to achieve the goals, to determine what they need to do and what kind of businesses they are in, right? So there's a period of upheaval where there is where things begin to get very, I suppose, there's competitive within the organization itself, where people begin to jostle for power and trying to find leadership within the organization. So this is a period of storming where they try to find ways of doing things and putting procedures and systems into the organization. So most organizations, after forming, they go through a period of storming, right? And after they try to rationalize and they try to sort it out, let me just put this. They will try to sort it out through putting in procedures and agreeing on what they need to do. And this is where that norming comes into effect, where procedures and systems are put into place and where they become much more systematic at what they try to do, right? And this is the norming period. And after those norms are put into place, the procedures and standard operation procedures and whatever, they have sorted out what they need to do and how they need to carry out the operations, then only the group will start to perform. And this goes on also for organizations, right? So we see that this is how, this is Tuckman's model, right? Explained in, and yes? Any questions? No? I thought there was going to be a question. But all right, so if we go through the steps, forming, storming, norming, and performing, and then later on, I suppose people added in one more stage, which is the adjourning, or when they begin to, the group begins to be much more, I suppose, people have already reached the objectives and goals of the organization, and they begin to disintegrate, or they begin to be dissolved as a group. And that's where the adjourning stage comes, right? So this is normal for group. And I suppose this can also be said for organizations, right? Where the life cycle talks about, generally, I suppose, 4 stages, main stages. Of course, you can, like anything else, you can add up at the starting of birth what happens, especially in the growth stage, right? Where it begins to increase its goals, or increase its products, or increase its operations and services. And growth is where the organization begin to have much more, I suppose, objectives and agenda. And also, as the group grows, then employees are being recruited into the organization, and that in itself makes it grow. When you talk about growth, we can think about the increase in the number of products, the increase in the number of services, the increase in the number of employees, the increase in the number of assets, right? The increase in the number of products, and of course the increase, when we talk about profit-oriented organization, the increase in the income, liabilities, and also assets of the organization, right? We will look at this later on, and suppose as they continue to grow, then they begin to find a niche where they find their core business to be what they need to do. And this is where probably they come into a period of comfort where they are already having a very stable operations and I suppose market. And if they're not careful, then they can see that their performance begin to plateau, right? Where they reach the flat performance within the graph. And if they're not careful, then there will probably be a decline in their performance. There will be a decline in terms of their market share, and there may be a decline in terms of their profitability, and the emergence of competitors and how they handle competition also can contribute to their decline, right? So these are probably the four main models. Of course, in this model, there's probably a new setup being growth or an outgrowth, right? And this is how probably we can look at how the effectiveness of organization goes through in terms of time, where there is a birth and growth, and this is where they reach that plateau. And if they're not careful, then there will probably be a decline. And I think Weitzel and Johnson look specifically at the organizational decline stage, right? And probably, right, this is how also in terms of the size of the company, the size of the firm, the size of our organization, the Greiner model has been explained clearly by the group. So we can see one of the things that is happening, although it looks like it's much more, I suppose, stable, but there are crises that happens within the growth of the organization. What I want to further explain right now is the Weitzel and Johnson model where the organization reaches a decline, right? So this blue line indicates that decline. If the organization does not take actions or steps to arrest that organization decline, then it will probably be going down into a dissolution stage where they have to close down, right? Now, I particularly, one example, I suppose, I particularly look at Giant. I think most people have heard of Giant, and in fact, have been customers to the Giant hypermarket, right? My own experience in particular is the Giant hypermarket in USJ1, which competed with Mydin when Mydin set up its mall and headquarters just beside Giant, and when they opened in August 2006, right? Then we began to see some changes within the Giant outlet itself, right? But if we look at Giant, I suppose Giant went through growth. It first was established way back in 1944. And if you remember, in fact, it is still now I suppose what used to be just a grocery store in Bangsa, operated by the Tang family. And one of you have gone to Lucky Garden and been to Tang Mini Market Center, or rather TMC, right? In Lucky Garden, if you go to Lucky Garden, there is a TMC. Well, I suppose you know the famous, I suppose, what Mahbub, where Mahbub is, right? And across the block from Mahbub is the TMC, the Tang Mini Market Center. I think that is where Giant, I suppose, started to grow, with just that grocery store operated by Tang family, and then they opened TMC, and then later on they began to open a supermarket. I think one of the first supermarkets was in Taman Melawati, and then they opened the Giant Cash and Carry in USJ1, Subang Jaya. And then it was just a cash and carry, where it was very popular and was doing very well, right? people around Subang Jaya and people from, I suppose, areas nearby Puchong and so on, went to buy their groceries at Giant Cash and Carry then way back in the 90s, right? And as time went on, Giant Cash and Carry became a hypermarket. There's a difference, I suppose, in between a supermarket and a hypermarket in terms of the size. The hypermarket is able to buy its products that they sell, the goods, in bigger volumes, right? And as they buy in bigger volume, they get a better discount for their purchases. And that discount is actually passed on to the customers, where past customers enjoy lower prices for the groceries that they buy. And if you look at the history of hypermarket itself, some of you may remember Makro, right? In fact, Makro was one of the first, in fact, the first hypermarket in Malaysia, operated by a Dutch company. And Makro, I suppose, the attractiveness of Makro was, of course, the lower price it offered the people who wanted to buy. But the problem was that you had to be a member of Makro. And to be a member, you must have a business registered. You must be a registered business, right? So people would take their registration, business registration, show it to Makro and become a member there. And with that, they are able to purchase goods and groceries at a lower price, but in bulk, right? So they usually would buy one box or one carton of Milo or whatever products they want to buy, right? That was Makro. And I think Giant caught on to the idea of a hypermarket. They began to buy products from manufacturers in bulk and bigger volumes, and as such they get better discounts, and that discount was passed on to the consumers, right? So this was where, after the supermarket in Melawati, Giant opened its Giant Cash and Carry in USJ 1, and they did well, right? They did well because you can see the increase in the number of customers going to the market. And from cash and carry, because as a cash and carry, you can only buy goods in cash. And then later on, they allowed people who bought more than 50 ringgit in goods to use the credit card, right? And then as they were they began to be much more successful, right? And they allowed people to use credit cards. Of course, a lot of people went there. But Giant began to have problems when Mydin opened its mall just next door in 2006, right? So Mydin is also another success story. You can read up Mydin. I think Mydin himself has a book. Oh yeah, okay. I think if you see this book, Mydin's book, you can read this up. It's quite interesting. The only thing I think the organization is quite haphazard, that it's quite difficult to find information because it is not, I suppose, it's not as organized to me as books should be, right? So that's the problem with that book. But anyway, it's interesting also in the sense of how Mydin grew, right? Way back in 1918, when the father opened a store in Penang Island, and the store got burned down during the World War II, and then Mydin Muhammad himself, right? The father was Ghulam something, right? Mydin himself went to Kota Bharu and opened a shop in Kota Bharu. He opened a shop because it was near to Thailand and was a good trading point, right? But his first shop was in Kota Bharu in 1959, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then in 1979, he went to Kuala Terengganu. And in 1989, he opened his store in Jalan Masjid India, right? And after Jalan Masjid India, he opened the one in Selayang, and after the one in Selayang, I suppose there were Klang and a few others. And then finally, they opened their headquarters, which was in USJ 1, right, in 2006. Or I think it was a soft launch in 2006. But you see, when Mydin opened its store just next door to Giant, then now Giant had straight competition, right? They had a direct competitor in Mydin. The story of how Mydin opened the store in USJ1 was also interesting because Amir, I think the son of couldn't even get a bank loan to open or to set up the store in USJ1 because Giant was there, and the banks thought that for Mydin to be competing head-on with Giant was something that was not going to be good for Mydin. But somehow Mydin pulled it off, and in fact, Mydin was able to beat Giant. Why? Right? Well, simply because I think Giant, as a very successful company that did well as a hypermarket in USJ, they was actually blinded, right? So that was the first phase of decline in USJ1, where Giant did not anticipate that Mydin was actually going to be a strong competitor for them, right? So this was probably a phase where good information about their competitor Mydin would have been able to help Giant to, I suppose, strategize to be able to compete better with Giant, right? So this was, if you can look probably at, this was probably around 2006, 2007, where Giant was blinded and did not do anything later on. So that actually moved to a period of inaction. Although, right, Mydin next door was pulling away customers simply because Mydin was offering goods at a lower price and at a better place. The mall was much more attractive in the sense that it had a lot of, I suppose, tenants, also like their food court and also other stores there that actually pulled customers from Giant, right? And the thing was that Giant did not do much, right? They began to lose their the outlets that rented space from them, right? I remember Giant, there used to be a small food court, right? Where there was this Chendol and Rojak, which was doing well. And then there was this, I think, clay pot rice and some other outlets that actually provided good food. But these people soon closed down simply because they were lacking customers, right? People did not go there much more because people did not go to Giant, right? And then they also had a textile shop, I think Daewoo or something, which was very big and very popular then. And Daewoo also closed shop, right? But you see, Giant did not do much. I enjoyed going to Giant simply because, in fact, in the beginning, I preferred to go to Giant simply because parking was much more easier in Giant. And Giant was just one floor. You did not have to go to the second floor to purchase. So it was just one floor, very easy, very convenient. But the thing was that because Giant did not do much to improve itself and to be able to compete with Giant, soon I began to see things that were not being kept on the shelves. The shelves were becoming to be empty, right? For example, I remember at that time I like to buy Maggi, that had that Maggi soy sauce there. And for periods of time, I couldn't find Maggi soy sauce. Or maybe I wanted to buy some other things, it was not there. And I could actually see that even the employees were not happy being at work, because one of the indications, they were actually fighting on the floors, right? They were arguing about work. So it was not a good situation. But the thing is that Giant did not do anything, right? Until it was too late when they realized that Mydin was actually a true competitor. Mydin was actually taking away their customers, and they were beginning to lose customers big time. Sorry. They were beginning to lose customers big time. So what did they do? They began to compete on prices, right? Just at the junction, the intersection where we go into the main road in Subang, Kemajuan or Harapan. But well, I think Kemajuan was, I forgot the name. But Kemajuan into USJ1, just at that intersection, Mydin had set up a billboard that showed the goods that were on sale for that week. And soon Giant also set up a billboard across Giant offering sale prices on goods, so discount and special offers. The thing was that because Mydin was already getting good business, they were able to put their goods at the lower prices. And Giant was actually was not doing the right thing in trying to have a head-on price competition, right? So a price war was not a good action. So it was a faulty action for Giant when they went into a price war with Mydin, right? So that in effect contributed to the further decline of Giant. And in terms of reorganization, I suppose this was where Giant decided to close the store, right? And reorganize. And they started to, when they closed the store, of course, Giant had many other stores elsewhere. And they began to reorganize and begin to build a new complex, a new shopping outlet, right? So in a way, Giant at USJ1 closed. They closed to be able to reorganize so that they can actually open a new outlet that was as big as Mydin. So that was the choice, the strategy that they took in order to compete with Mydin next door, right? But the thing is that even after they opened their store, reopened their store in USJ1, I think they still cannot compete with Mydin. And as you can see, Giant has been closing down its outlets, right? They had, I think in 2014 was the year that they picked, right? They had over, I think 147 stores throughout Malaysia in 2014. And today, I think they closed over a third of those stores, and they're left with about 100 stores. And even then, I think they are beginning to close more stores, and more of their, I suppose, supermarkets and hypermarkets are expected to be closed this year, right? So they are actually experiencing a loss in business. And I think in 4 consecutive years after 2014, their business began to have a net loss of about 243 million, right? Although their income was about 4.6 billion throughout Malaysia, but they still lost were at a loss of about 243 billion in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And then they continue to be losing money even today. And you can see that Giant is actually going to close down a few stores. And we would probably see Giant going down the same way as Carrefour, right? If you remember, there was Carrefour in Malaysia, and Carrefour also closed down. In fact, Carrefour was taken over by, was it what, Aeon, right? Carrefour. And soon, I suppose, in the hypermarket business, Tesco, I see, is also not doing very well. Comparing Tesco from last time and now, I think I'm beginning to see that their goods are beginning to lose in terms of quality, right? So Tesco would also be experiencing some serious losses, right? But I think Mydin is still growing, still going well, and hopefully Mydin can take can have good strategies. In fact, they have good strategies because they have improved their electronic systems that actually tracks their business, right? And inventory. You remember the Meriah card. Meriah card is very good because in the sense that it actually helps Mydin to manage its inventory better, right? So we will continue to see the supermarket and hypermarket business, the retail business, right? And hopefully we can continue to see good competitors, because if Mydin alone were left, then they'd be a monopoly in terms of supermarket. But you can also actually also see other supermarkets coming up like Econ Safe. And I think right now, Supermart, 99 supermarket, 99,
Speedmart.
yeah?
Speedmart.
99 Speedmart.
Speedmart, right? Speedmart is doing well. They are also growing tremendously. And I think there are things also at Speedmart, there are also better buys, right? So for example, eggs that are sold at Speedmart is at a lower price and they are fresher because the turnover is faster. So if you want to buy eggs, go buy at Speedmart. They're cheaper. Okay, so I think this is what the Wetzel and Johnson's declining stage comes. So this continues to explain why organizations or companies begin to decline, right? Simply because one, possibly they have not been able to respond to the environment. And particularly now, well, I think I don't need to emphasize anymore on the pandemic, because this is in fact one of the biggest threats to businesses now. And if they are not able to address that challenge, then decline will become much more faster for them, right? So we will continue to observe what happens in the market. So these are probably reasons for decline, right? Reduced workforce, and I think we have experience in this also, in the sense that our foreign labor has been put a halt. There has been emphasis, although we can see that it is still available. There are still foreign labor available, but the emphasis is always on local labor, right? And then always there's a reduced market share issue. And we can see a lot of organizations experiencing in this, right? Where their market share begins to decline because there is a competitor in the market. Mars, for example, experienced a loss in the local market share simply because of the emergence of AirAsia. Not only local travel, but also international travel with the emergence of AirAsia, right? But again, you see, those things are always changing because of the dynamic environment. Reduced profit or share price, yes, a very big concern whenever your profit begins to decline, right? And as a result of a declining profit, then the share price will also decline simply because of the dividend being reduced, right? Sorry. Sometimes these things just go. Oh, okay. I suppose that's over because it was the last slide. Okay. So, any thoughts about organization life cycle? Any questions that you want to put forward? So everything is loud and clear, okay? So no thoughts, no opinions.
Assalamualaikum, Dr.
Anyone?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Dr. Gideon.
Yes.
Hello, Assalamualaikum, Dr. Gideon.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, I have one question. Okay, Nasrul Amri. Okay, Dr. Gideon. Okay, is one of organization declined indeed, and then after that suddenly after everything's closed, and then suddenly we rebranding again the company and then organization, and then come back again, and then the new branding and a new I think the name everything. Okay,
Yeah.
so how come I think maybe the mentality of the human and then the people like the I think the for like the company before bankrupt and then no a customer again, and then
Yeah.
after rebranding and then suddenly the I think the people's still the mentality is still same. I see the I think the product is same, and then no
People within the organization.
quality
Yes.
everything. Yeah, so I think how to organization the branding after rebranding and after rename again to I think to sustain the company or the organization. Thank you, Doctor.
In fact, if we look at Giant, right, using Giant as an example, right, the USJ1, where Giant re-emerged after building a new outlet, a big mall that was it's just as big as Mydin. But you see, the thing is that probably this is where we begin to look at next week's topic, where we begin to discuss about organization culture, right? Because organization culture is based on the underlying assumptions about doing business, about doing organization work. And that belief, that underlying assumption, that belief in self, if it does not change, will make people do things the same way, right? So even if there is a rebranding, right, after a re-emergence, if the mindset is still the same, if you continue to do the same things like what you did last time, then you will probably not be able to succeed, right? So change without, if you don't change the way you do things, then you will not be able to change your, I suppose, effectiveness or your performance, right? For you to be able to improve your performance, you must have a new way of looking at things. You must adopt a new mindset. There must be a different belief about the things that you need to do and how you're going to do it. Because the environment has changed, things have changed. And if you do not respond to that change, then you will just go back to what you were before, right? We will look at, for example, Singapore, Giant in Singapore. The Giant also operates in Singapore. And Giant Singapore is going through a rebranding. Number one, they have changed their logo, right? But if they continue to practice the same things that they did before, they will not be able to change their fate, right? They will continue to go into that decline. Remember, when we look at this, right? So it is probably one inaction, faulty action, right? So that faulty action is based on what you did before. If you continue to practice the same things that you practiced before, then there'll be no change, right? You cannot get back to this level. Because to be able to go back to, I suppose, that level of performance that is required, you need to do a change. And I think next week's topic, we will look at that in particular. I want to emphasize on that underlying assumption, that deep level of culture that actually makes us behave the way that we behave, makes us do the things the way that we do, right? The same thing with UPM, for example. We have been around since 1973, so that makes us about, almost 40 years now, right? And throughout that 40 years, we have adopted certain ways of doing things, right? In 1996, when Syed, sorry, my memory is failing. Syed Jalaluddin, sorry. Syed Jalaluddin took over as the Deputy Vice Chancellor. He actually changed the mindset, right? The mindset of a teaching service university into a mindset of a research university. And that change in itself actually pulled up UPM, right? Then in the 90s, UPM among the 5 universities was actually the last of the 5. If we were to go for the UPU meeting where we select undergraduate students, students would choose UPM as a last choice, right? All the other universities were chosen, and UPM as the university was actually the last choice to be chosen by students. But I think in 1996,
Prof,
yes, when 1990,
Prof, I think because UPM,
yes,
sorry,
let's go ahead. Bangkit.
previously UPM is known as Pertanian, so I think it's not a popular university.
No, that also,
When
right? That is actually where the
Okay.
rebranding began, right? So to change the whole mindset, UPM actually went through a rebranding. Just in its name itself from Pertanian, because then you see everything, we had engineering, we had business at UPM. But just because of the name University Pertanian, employers began to think that it was just agriculture engineering. It was just business, agriculture, economics. Everything was associated with agriculture. Yes, but that is just a name. Changing the name itself, just changing the name alone, would actually not cause changes within the way that you behave, right? If the lecturers were not put into a different mode of doing things, they were still emphasizing teaching and services, then we would not be able to focus or shift away to a new mindset of a research and publication mindset, right? So research and publication is actually where most reputable universities in the world are concentrating, because as a knowledge business, you do not just want to transfer knowledge, but you must be involved in the generation of knowledge, And that is where research and publication comes in. So it was a totally a new mindset, moving from just teaching and services to research and publication. And we have been able throughout the years to improve on that. Right now, we are going to experience a new, I suppose, challenge where there is a requirement for us. Now, we've been practicing all our work on a much more physical approach, where we actually have classes, where we actually conduct our work much more on a physical basis. But right now, it is time to move on to a new, probably mode of doing business, in the sense that more businesses in UPM have to be much more virtual, right? So there needs to be, I suppose, a sudden shoot up in terms of our electronic capacity. And if we are not able to do this, I think we will be at a disadvantage, right? It's good that we have prepared some of our work for virtual work, but we need to improve on the hardware. I think that's what we need to do right now. Okay, is that clear, Nasrul?
Yeah, clear. Thank you, Dr. Kedin.
Yes. So next week, when we discuss about organization culture, we will examine the 3 levels of culture that will actually spell out and explain why people in organization behave in a certain way. So look forward.
Sure, Dr. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. This is a trailer, I suppose. Datanglah beramai-ramai. Please be there. Thank you, Nasrul. Any other thoughts or questions? Assignment.
Yes.
I think we have not reached 50% of submission. Are you all having problems with it? Suddenly,
do you receive mine, Doctor?
probably. When did you send it?
I sent it last Saturday.
Last Saturday. I suppose I did. Well, if you have the right email address, kidin@upm, then it should be okay.
Yeah, Kidin at UPM. Yeah, okay.
Prof, may I know how can we know that you receive our assignment or not? Because
I will reply. That I've received after this.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So if you did not receive, then WhatsApp me and then ask about it. Okay.
Okay, Doctor.
All right. There's nothing else. It's still early today, but never mind.
Prof,
Almost 7:30.
Prof, for the second assignment, may we ask when is the due date for our preparation?
I thought we decided on that. What was it? Was just before it's just before the group presentation, right? Plus at the
Week
13.
Week 12.
Week 12, right?
Okay.
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 Never mind. I think for the first assignment, I'm going to I'll just be easy on you, although there are still a lot of things that are wanting in your assignments. But for your second assignment, I think you need to improve, right? We'll grow, right? you get better.
Excuse me, doctor.
Yes.
We just want some clarification about the group assignment because some of us are really confused.
What are you confused with?
There is one presentation which is we present during the class session
Yes.
and one report writing.
And one on week 13 and week 14 will be the group presentation for your group work,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
whatever your group work is, that will be presented on week 13 and 14. So there are, I suppose, 8 groups, so 4 groups per week, or 9 groups.
Okay.
Okay?
And also we need to do a report writing, right?
Oh yes, the paper is very important. The presentation is actually good for you to get feedback on how to improve your paper.
Okay, doctor.
So the presentation is on a as is, where is basis. Wherever you are, your paper. If your group just have the title, then you just present the title and that's it. Right?
Okay.
I hope that's not the way lah. So at least have some work, and then I can actually, the class and I will be able to give you the feedback on how you're going to improve the paper.
Okay, doctor.
Okay?
Okay,
2
doctor.
presentations. One is this, there's the topic by week. And then the final presentation, the other presentation is on your group work.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
All right, good. Anything else? Kingsley, I hope you're clear.
Yes, sorry, I was unclear just now. Before I picked up what you were saying, it was just now. But I'll ask my teammate what you said. They'll fill me in.
Okay, we'll discuss, and then if you have any more questions, refer to me.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right then, if nothing else, shall we adjourn dissolution for today?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Thank you, Prof.
have a good night.
Doctor.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Jom.
Good night.
Good night.